Well, I think now is a good time to maybe shift our discussion a little bit towards East Malaysia. And I feel quite strongly that one of the underreporting of what happened in G14 is the story of Sabah and Sarawak. I think for the first time in a long, long time, both states are now ruled by political parties that are not part of the federal coalition. So for example, in Sabah, Parti Warisan is actually not a former member of Pakatan Harapan, but it's an ally of Pakatan Harapan. And in Sarawak, of course, we have the GPLs, the rebranded old Sarawak Barisan Nasional. And I think the other underreported story was the role played by Sabahans and Sarawakians' feelings towards the Malaysia Agreement in 1963, and of course the rise of state nationalism on both sides. I think this issue is not widely reported on this side of the South China Sea, but I think we need to discuss it because it has major implications for the entire country. For example, Sarawak has just asserted its rights over all the oil and gas resources in Sarawak. They're actually challenging the PDA, the Petronas' right to control all the oil and gas resources throughout the country. And as many of you know, right, the big portion of the Malaysian development project is actually Petronas' money. So can you imagine what happens to the Malaysian development project if Petronas are no longer in control of the entire oil and gas resources in the country? So YB Nancy was the co-chair of the Federal Cabinet Committee that dealt with this issue. And that's the reason why I invited here, and I wanted to hear from her. And exactly what do the people in Sabah and Sarawak hope for the PH government when it comes to this issue, MA63?
Thank you. Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity to be able to share with the people. Well, we have been there since during the PN government. I was involved as the co-chair, as you mentioned. We have been discussing, I must give credit to the late Chief Minister of Sarawak, Tok Nan. I've been discussing with him on a program called Federalism when I was in charge of law. But after that, I was no longer in charge of law, but I was taking over this role as co-chair for devolution of power. If you ask me, PBB is a party that has really been putting forward on all this, claiming the rights for Sarawakians, so for Sarawak. And then you were mentioning just now, it was underreported, was not many people would be interested in this, over this side of Malaysia, but only Sarawak and Sabah would be interested. You know why? Because a lot of Sarawakians would say that we have been feeding and we have been enriching, I'm sorry to say, we have been enriching West Malaysians. This is the issue that had been mentioned in Sarawak, and I've been receiving this because when they heard that I'm coming here, now mention it. Now when we see the Twin Towers, you know, the Petronas Twin Towers, now look at us. What happened to us in Sarawak? So now we are talking about MA63, maybe for those who are uninformed, what is MA63? This is an agreement that combined Sarawak, Sabah, formerly it used to be Singapore, but they ceased to be a member in 1965, and of course the Federation of Malaya. Now, it is very important to us because this is where that agreement, that was the one which was supposed to safeguard the interests of Sarawak, interests of Sarawakians and also Sabahans. And of course, we were talking about oil royalty, we're talking about the soils there, whatever that belongs to us, and the rights of the people, how we should be protected, how we should be safeguarded. But now, well, I'm glad before the election, Tun N did mention that, you know, he realized that Sarawak and Sabah were, the word that he used was terabai, neglected. And he also mentioned that he was inheriting the system that was practiced by the predecessors. And also he promised that PH will give the oil producing states, especially Sarawak and Sabah, 20% royalty. And in Parliament, I was very much involved in ensuring that this would be a focus for PH to realize it for us. When the Prime Minister was asked by the other MPs about the 20% royalty, then he agreed that yes, we are going to give 20% royalty to all oil producing states. and that will be against the profits. But when he was out of the day one, he was asked by the media, and he said, yes, we're going to give them 20% out of net profit. And this is where we all have to wake up and tell us, you know, if you're talking about 20% out of net profit, this will be against all the expenses that we made. Then what would us in Sarawak be getting? If we are talking about calculating how much we should be getting now, it will be like what Lim Guang En said. Here is the trillion that they should be giving it to us, because we have not been receiving so much. And before, when you talk about MA63, this is the reason why Sarawakians now being very, very aggressive and being very they're very protective towards themselves. So this is why we are telling the people about MA63 and why it is very important to us, because Sarawak and Sabah are still considered as very backward in terms of development, whereas over here now people are talking about no GST, no tongkat and everything. Now you expect the tongkat from Sarawak and Sabah, they say, no? All these are becoming jokes for Sarawak and Sabah now, that we give you the tongkat and we all here in Sarawak, we are still backward. Now you may be asking me, why do we allow yourself to be like that before? Now I got the privilege to ask people who were in authority during that time, why did we just accept 5%? Now we have to be fair with Petronas. This is Sarawakians being Sarawakians. They are very, very, very nice people, very humble people. They are still very forgiving people. They said, okay, we have to understand what Petronas is. As they have to spend money for the starting of the activities, oil mining activities, the exploration and also exploitation activities. The infrastructure costs a lot of money. We didn't have to spend a lot of money. We didn't have to spend any money, and they're giving us job. At the same time, Sarawak at that time was still greens. So therefore, we should be thankful to the federal government. Yes, we are thankful to the federal government until a lot of our people are becoming very educated and also knowledgeable in terms of oil and mining, and know what is to be done and how Sarawak should be compensated and should be paid. So this is why MA63 should be kept alive by us until the PH government sits down and discuss with us. And I'm glad they have committed to say that they're going to sit down, they're going to form the task force. But for information of everybody in the hall here, we had a committee. I was one of those chairing the committee, and before the election, we were already going towards the second phase, where we were already talking about quantum, how much we should be getting. And we were already there. So do not say that some even Sarawakians say that, you know, Sarawak MPs, they don't talk about it. Why we did not talk about it anymore was because it was already in the process of being given due attention in terms of quantum. But the rest of it, Sarawak officers, Sabah officers, the federal officers, they were all doing their jobs. They were all doing it professionally, because they knew that this amount is due to us, and we should not be backward as it is today. We should be getting a lot more, because we need that money for us to develop the state.
So besides the oil and gas thing, what exactly is MA63 autonomy? What exactly do Sabah and Sarawakians want, besides the oil and gas?
Of course, in terms of development. And we, well, of course, there are other things as well. You know, Malaysia, when Malaysia was formed, we want to maintain in terms of religion. We want to be free from being tied up to whatever religion. In our constitution, it is not mentioned Islam as a religion for Sarawak, but we acknowledge the fact that Islam is a religion for the Federation. And in terms of education, English. In terms of English, we still practice English until today. That's why even in court, they can still use English as a language.
What you mean English is the official language as well, yes.
we are also free to use English as a medium, and of course immigration is one of our key the power whereby we control all those who naughty ones who want to come to Sarawak. Don't say that we are just controlling the opposition at that time. No, we were also controlling those from UMNO, BN, those who were naughty in the sense that, because when we say naughty, you see Sarawakians being so humble. We say naughty because we can't stand people who label people, who shout at each other, who use all those vulgar words. We can't stand that. So we use immigration to control them. But of course, the British at that time was also very kind to us. Why they want us to control immigration was because they knew Sarawak was not developed yet. So therefore, we need to have that small piece of cake for Sarawakians. So these are among the...
Sure, but one of the arguments, a strong argument that's put out by the people on this side of South China Sea is that once you're members of the Federation, you should play by the rules of the new Federation. Why do we need to keep looking back to 1963?
Well, because that's where the sentiment is. You see, the sentiment of Sarawak for Sarawak. Sarawak first. This is what we have been telling ourselves. Sarawak first, because there's a lot of things that is in Sarawak that needs to be safeguarded. Even our culture. You see now, with the rise of a lot of political parties coming in, and we are just watching them, the way they behave when they come in. So the culture is just different. Not that we have different nose, different eyes, different... It's not that.
I'm just wondering whether that argument is valid, because you talk about Peninsula Parties moving to Sabah and Sarawak. But as far as I know, most of those parties from Peninsula Malaysia, for example, I'm sure you're referring to DAP and PKR, which won seat in the recent election. My understanding is that almost the entire leadership of those PKR Sarawak and DAP Sarawak are actually Sarawakians.
Yeah.
So what is so special about Sarawak for Sarawakians?
Well, if you talk about now, if PKR and DAP they're already there, it will be just like what we had gone through like last time, BN. But last time, I must say that we did not make mistake, because BN, that was the first party that we had as a coalition, because we needed help at that time. But now we are almost we almost developed in that sense. You don't need people from over here to help us. Okay, we can manage ourselves. We don't need to bring that, because they have been telling us, well, you have UMNO there, but UMNO didn't come into Sarawak. They respected us. We said, you don't come into Sarawak, let us work together. But the AP and PKR, they are there. And now, they are now just like followers as well. They don't have that voice.
I think I have to step in here and say that there's an alternative viewpoint to why UMNO is not in Sarawak. And I think the obvious answer is the reason why UMNO was not in Sarawak, because you had a strongman in Sarawak that kept delivering the same number of seats to Barisan National elections after elections.
Without them, without anybody from here to help us. But of course, I must appreciate what the federal government had done to us. They've been giving us a lot of help in terms of development as well, even though it's not enough.
Can I give an opportunity, YB, Dato Zambry?
Not enough. Okay, so anyway. Well, that's why the Sarawak for Sarawak is very important, because that sentiment, we don't want people from here to come and control us. So that's why we have been delivering the majority all the time, and that's why until now, the people over here are still watching us, wanting us to come and to join them.
YB, Dato Zambry, how do you feel about this MA63 issue?
Well, that's part of the understanding and the agreement signed some time ago. But of course, at the same time, it also involves some political analysis in it. As YB Dato Seri Nancy mentioned now, I think they have every right to voice out, and it is part of the culture, if I may refer to Barisan national culture, because how we build this, the consensus building, and then the discussion. If Dato Seri Nancy can clarify this as well, how the process of discussion has been going on for quite some time as well, right? And then we are trying to reach out what is best for Sarawak as well as for Malaysia.
I'm just wondering whether you're overselling, because if there is so much consultation, so much discussion going on, so where do this feeling of Sarawak for Sarawakians come in then?
No, it is not. This is not, because the most important thing in the principle of coalition, well, you have to remember, is all from along the political alliance. So, in order to reach a certain agreement, you have to sit down together. You know, of course, you don't get everything on the table, and you put up your proposals, and the other side also put up the proposals, and of course, you will come to certain agreements.
Forget about the past. We're talking about the present and the future. Now that Sabah and Sarawak is very clear, they want the full implementation of MA63. Would you personally support that process to give them the full autonomy that they want?
This is part of the content of their agreement. If that is agreeable upon, why not?
Including if they own all the oil and gas resources.
Why not? Why not? Because there's part, if you look at the Barisan National's manifestos.
For the members of the media, that is the headline tomorrow.
That's part of the agreement. I think you also agreed during that discussion.
It's not mentioned.
No, it's not mentioned. In fact, part of the Barisan National manifesto as well, to relook into that.
No, I'm not talking about relooking. I mean, you will have no problems voting for a law that says that Sabah and Sarawak own 100% of all the oil and gas rights.
But that one has to be sit down first, because it's not. I think in your context also, I believe even the new government, this is not something that you can just simply sell the idea like that, because it's about the forming of government, and also the relation between under the federalism and also. No,
but what they're talking about is a legal agreement that under MA63 they were promised a series of autonomies. And that the general feeling in Sabah and Sarawak is that this was not respected in the last 50-odd years. And therefore, the rise of state nationalism, and now they're coming back and saying that, you look at the government of Sabah and Sarawak, totally different. We want our own thing and we want full autonomy. Are you going to give it to us?
No, my position, if you ask me as a leader, I prefer the principle of negotiation and consensus building.
Okay, YB Fahmi?
Sorry, you shouldn't ask them whether they should give to us. We should dictate.
Okay.
How much we should be giving, you want to give.
Yeah, that's the point.
It is for Sarawak to dictate now, because we have our oil and mining ordinance.
Yes.
So
YB Fahmi, I have to put you on the spot on this Malaysia Agreement 63. What is the current thinking among Pakatan Harapan parties?
We were in the process of writing the manifesto. I think we discussed quite long and had a series of engagements at that time with our colleagues in Sabah and Sarawak particularly. I think I'm cautious about the word autonomy to an extent, that not at the expense of the Malaysia project, not at the expense of the idea of Malaysia itself. I think that for me is a heartbreak. Like, no, I didn't step into Parliament just to see us sign off. For example, if autonomy means, breaking away, that's not. I don't think that's also what our colleagues in Sarawak.
Okay, concrete example. Would you support a law that says Sabah and Sarawak own 100% of the oil and gas resources?
I don't think my leaders would agree to that. I think this is quite...
But it is in our soil, okay?
I understand.
It's for us to control that.
Yeah.
We should be determining how much we are giving to the federal Petronas.
Actually, something interesting also happened of late. We've been quite lucky that we have suddenly now more proactive members of parliament from a state like Perlis, for example, the MP for Kanga and MP for Arau, both of whom have been quite vocal in parliament. Perlis has three MPs, right? And 2 out of the 3 are very vocal. And sometimes the discussion in Perlis, one of our smaller states, and makes me also wonder, okay, we talk about being just and being fair to Sabah and Sarawak, but sometimes when I hear them speak, I wonder, are we being just and fair to Perlis itself? There was this meme, for those of you who are young enough to know what memes are, like Perlis so small, hashtag, that you go golfing and you hit the ball and goes out.
I have to play the devil's advocate. You are sidetracking the question, because the argument is that there was something signed.
Yeah.
So whether Perlis feels marginalized or not, the fact is Perlis did not have an agreement back in 1962-63. The question is, are you going to honor?
They don't own the.
Are you going to honor the spirit of the agreement?
No. So you asked about. I think in principle, for me as a lawmaker, if something was signed, we have to honor it. Yeah, we have to honor it. Yeah, and the practical considerations right now is the same thing like our manifesto. We want to abolish tolls, and then suddenly we see, oh my God, we have a 1 trillion ringgit debt. Right? Like, yeah, it's great. We want to do it, but now we're left with a 34 billion ringgit hole in our operating budget. Right? Yeah, we can ask for closure, ask to move forward, but we have no money. How to?
That's the headline for tomorrow. No money.
But that's the reality. And I think because for me, I would like to see the agreement fulfilled. Yeah,
sure.
I think we have to, because then what good is our word? Yeah, we sign.
Yes. Thank you very much.